right now, running the world's most powerful AI models requires these massive server farms, right? Like the size of football field.
Oh, absolutely. Huge data centers.
But there's this viral piece of code on GitHub that is proving you can run a massive 160 gigabyte AI, basically a digital brain, on the standard 8 gigabyte graphics card that's probably sitting in your computer right now.
Yeah, it's wild.
And the really crazy part, they don't compress the AI at all. They just delete its thoughts the exact second it's done having them.
It fundamentally challenges how we even think about hardware limits.
Exactly. So today we're doing a deep dive into the functional design documents of the system, which is called oLLM. And we're also looking at 3 foundational technical papers on memory-efficient AI alongside it.
Right, we've got FlashAttention-2, Milo, and FlashOptim.
Right, and our mission here is to dissect the actual mechanics. Not just what oLLM does, but the underlying math that makes running these uncompromised models on consumer hardware a reality for you.
Because it really is a reality now.
Okay, so let's unpack this, because to appreciate what oLLM pulls off, we really need to grasp the sheer brutality of the memory wall first. I mean, a standard graphics card, the GPU usually has, 8, maybe 16 gigabytes of video RAM?
Yeah, exactly. Which is just a drop in the bucket compared to what modern architectures actually demand.
Right.
Take a model like Win3 next ADB. Running Inference on that, just asking it a simple question and getting a response requires roughly 190 gigabytes of VRAM.
Just to ask a question.
Exactly. And training is a completely different nightmare. You look at the recent optimization research like the techniques detailed in the FlashOptim paper. They break down the baseline math for standard training using Atom optimizers. You need about 16 bytes of memory per parameter.
Wait, 16 bytes just to store the states and gradients for a single parameter?
Yep.
So if you're trading, say, a 7 billion parameter model, which is practically tiny by today's standards,
you're already looking at over 112 gigabytes of accelerated memory. And that is before you even factor in the memory needed for the activations, the actual data flowing through the network.
So it just scales out of control instantly?
It does. The industry is so desperate to clear this bottleneck that they resort to some pretty extreme measures. Like, FlashOptim shows how standard practice now involves quantizing the optimizer states.
Quantizing, meaning shrinking them down.
Right. They map the momentum values to signed 8-bit integers, or INT8, and the variance to unsigned 8-bit integers, UINT8.
So they're taking these highly precise numbers and just crushing them into much smaller digital boxes to save space.
They are, yeah. Though they do try to retain a lifeline to accuracy by keeping higher precision FP16 scale factors for every 32 elements.
Just to keep it from completely falling apart.
Exactly. And we see similarly complex memory-saving gymnastics and retrieval models, too.
Oh, really?
If you look at how systems handle massive in-batch and negative sampling, like the structures described in the Contactum paper, they are forced to build dual memory banks.
Dual memory banks?
Yeah, with separate first-in, first-out queues just to constantly shuffle queries and passages around. Otherwise, you'd need an array of 32 ultra-expensive accelerators just to hold the data at once.
Man, it sounds like the entire AI industry is basically playing an incredibly stressful game of Tetris with their data.
That's a great way to put it.
You compress the data, quantize the numbers, build complex queues. But here is where it gets really interesting. oLLM's design intent explicitly rejects quantization.
Completely rejects it.
It insists on preserving the full original FP16 and BF16 precision of the model. But why? I mean, if memory is the enemy, isn't compression the easiest weapon?
Well, exactly what happens when you take compression to its absolute limit is the focus of the Milo paper.
Right.
They use this quantize then compensate approach. They basically crush the model down to INT3.
Hold on, INT3. Computers think in powers of 2, right? Like 8-bit, 16-bit. A 3-bit format is highly non-standard.
Very non-standard.
That leaves wasted digital space, doesn't it?
It does. Which is why Milo requires highly complex 0-bit waste packing algorithms just to store the data on the hardware efficiently.
Jeez.
But the bigger issue is that when you compress a massive neural network down to 3-bit numbers, you lose an unacceptable amount of accuracy.
The model basically gets dumb.
Exactly. To fix this, Milo applies SVD, singular value decomposition.
Okay, let's translate SVD for a second. If I compress a high-resolution photograph so much that it turns into blocky pixels throughout, SVD is essentially mathematical guesswork to try and redraw the lost lines and smooth out the image.
That's actually a very helpful way to visualize it. SVD isolates the largest sources of error caused by the 3-bit compression.
Okay.
And it creates small compensator matrices to patch those holes on the fly. It's a brilliant trade-off, honestly, sacrificing a low bit of accuracy to drastically reduce the memory footprint.
Well, LM looks at that trade-off and says, no thanks.
Yeah, it takes the exact opposite path.
So instead of trading accuracy for memory space, what is it sacrificing?
Time. Specifically, sustained storage bandwidth. It offloads the heavy lifting to your solid-state drive, your SSD,
Ah,
and the results redefine what's possible.
loan.
Normally, running a Llama 3.8b model with a 100,000 token context window demands 71 gigabytes of VRAM.
Which you're not getting on a consumer laptop.
No way.
Yeah.
But oLLM runs that exact same full precision model on just 6.6 gigabytes of GPU VRAM.
That's insane.
By backing it up with 69 gigabytes of SSD storage.
That is wild. It's almost like an old school film projector.
What do you mean?
Like the movie itself might be this massive 100 gigabyte reel sitting on the spool, the SSD, but the projector only ever holds one single frame inside the lens of the GPU at any given millisecond.
I like that. The film projector analogy captures the core mechanic perfectly, actually.
Thanks. So how does it actually do that under the hood?
Well, to manage that continuous feed of frames, oLLM relies on 5 specific subsystems.
Okay, what are they?
You have the inference entry points, the weight loaders, rewritten transformer classes, a disk-backed key value cache, and utility helpers for instrumentation.
That sounds like a lot of custom code. From a developer's perspective, this sounds like it requires rewriting everything from scratch.
You think so?
If the fundamental way memory is handled is different, the user's code must have to change too, right?
Actually, no. The public API lifecycle is surprisingly seamless.
Really?
Yeah. You import the inference module and call any model. This totally bypasses the standard Hugging Face model loading process.
Okay.
Instead, it uses a factory pattern via a function called load model.
Wait, factory pattern?
It basically instantiates a loader class and binds it to module-level global variables, like llama.loader.
So it sets up this shared environment, like an invisible scaffolding that the rest of the application just taps into.
Exactly. And then it performs a structural hijack. It monkey patches the original architecture.
Wow, monkey patching.
Yeah, it uses from pre-trained on the computer's standard processor, the CPU, to load the skeletal structure of the model before moving the top-level object to the target device.
So it's essentially popping the hood of a car, pulling out the gas engine, dropping in an electric motor, and hot wiring the electronics so the steering wheel and the dashboard still think they're driving a gas car.
That's exactly what it is. The outer Hugging Face wrapper, things developers use every day like model.generate or the text streamer, they stay exactly the same.
Right.
But the internal machinery dictating where the data lives is completely rewritten. The residency policy is entirely custom.
Which brings us to their core architectural principle, right? Layer local residence.
Yes, where local residency. Standard setups load all billions of parameters into the VRAM at once, letting them just sit there.
Taking up all the space.
Right. oLLM treats transformer blocks as transient compute kernels.
Transient meaning they blink in and out of existence.
Precisely. Just before decoder layer N is scheduled to run, its parameters stream from the SSD into the GPU.
Okay.
The layer executes the forward path calculation. And the millisecond that calculation is done, oLLM fires a function called setMetaPlaceholder.
And what does that do?
It replaces those massive gigabyte-heavy tensors with zero-sized meta-device placeholders. The memory is instantly vaporized.
Wow. It just ghosts the data.
Gone.
But wait, if you're constantly streaming gigabytes of model weights from a hard drive to a graphics card, layer by layer, doesn't that data have to travel through the CPU first?
Usually, yes.
Because that seems like a massive traffic jam.
Passing data through the CPU creates a catastrophic bottleneck for this.
So how do they get around it?
To avoid this, oLLM's weight loader backend uses classes like GDS weights and dense weights loader.
Okay.
If you install specific libraries, Kvikio and QPyOLM reads the raw weight byte straight from eSSD directly into the GPU memory.
So it cuts the CPU out of the loop entirely.
It does. It uses a standard called DLPAC.
TLPAR.
Right. Essentially, DLPAC allows the system to hand the memory pointer directly to PyTorch. It's zero copy access.
Meaning the CPU just hands over the treasure map to the data and gets out of the way.
Exactly. Though I should note, the architecture does allow for CPU staging for the earliest, most frequently used layers of a model.
Oh, why is that?
Just to reduce wear and tear on the SSD, since those first few layers get hit constantly.
That makes sense. Okay, I follow how it handles the model's weights, but what about the context?
The context window.
Because if I feed a 100,000 token document into an AI, the key value cache, which is the AI's short-term memory of the conversation, that alone would blow up an 8 GB GPU instantly, right? Even if the model weights were 0 bytes.
The context window is the silent killer for consumer hardware, yeah.
So how does oLLM handle it?
Traditional setups use techniques like page attention, which tries to fracture the memory into non-contiguous blocks, kind of similar to how an operating system manages virtual memory.
Okay.
But oLLM externalizes the key value, or KV, cache entirely. It's disk-backed. It saves the context layer by layer to the disk and reloads it only when absolutely necessary.
Hold on. Saving and loading a massive attention matrix to a hard drive for every single conversational step.
Yeah.
Mathematically, how does the system not just grind to an absolute halt?
This is where we have to look at the math in the FlashAttention-2 picture.
Let's get into it.
Specifically, their implementation of online softbacks. By utilizing this math, the full attention matrix is never materialized in memory at the same time.
Slow down and explain the problem with the regular attention matrix first. Standard attention math is usually described as big O of n squared memory, right?
That is the core issue, yes.
Meaning,
if you double the length of the document you give the AI, the memory required to process the relationships between those words quadruples.
ouch.
And we have to consider a severe hardware quirk on modern GPUs here, too. Take an A100 GPU, it can perform 312 teraflops of processing power for matrix multiplication.
Which is incredibly fast.
Right, but for non-matrix multiplication operations, things like addition, finding the maximum value, or division, it only has 19.5 teraflops.
Wait, really? That is a massive disparity. It's like 16 times slower if you aren't doing matrix multiplication.
It's a huge bottleneck. So you want the GPU spending all its time multiplying matrices, right? The problem is the softmax algorithm, which the AI uses to turn raw scores into probabilities.
Okay.
Standard online softmax requires you to divide every single intermediate number by a running sum, called the denominator, as you process blocks of data.
And division is a non-mapable operation.
Exactly. It chokes the hardware.
So how does FlashAttention-2 rewrite the algebra to fix that?
It maintains an unscaled version of the output.
Unscaled.
Instead of dividing every intermediate block by the denominator, it simply adds up the exponents and lets the numbers grow.
Oh, interesting.
It scales the final output block by the denominator only at the very end of the entire loop.
So it basically skips the constant division step until the very last second.
Precisely. What's fascinating here is how tweaking that one algebraic step eliminates a massive amount of non-mapable arithmetic and prevents catastrophic memory rewrites.
That's incredibly clever.
It is, and it optimizes the backward pass for training similarly.
How so?
Well, instead of saving both the maximum value and the sum of the exponentials for the backward calculation, it only stores a composite statistic.
Yeah.
The log sum.
Log sum.
Yeah, the equation is simply L superscript J equals M superscript J plus the log of L superscript J.
Okay.
By storing just that one composite number, it slashes the memory footprint in half.
Wow. And because the math is so streamlined, oLLM can use this unscaled online softmax approach to process practically infinite context windows block by block.
Exactly.
Reading and writing to the SSD without the GPU crashing.
The mathematical elegance is really what makes the disk streaming feasible. Importantly, oLLM isn't rigid. I mean, the architecture actually adapts to diverse models using specific implementation files.
I'm glad you brought that up because a dense model like Llama is structurally very different from something like a sparse mixture of experts model.
Very different.
So how does the system adapt to those architectural shifts?
It uses dedicated source files for different architectures. For example, there's a file called when3next.py that is written specifically to handle the routing logic of Qwen3Next-ADB's sparse mixture of experts.
Okay.
Or take gptos.py, which handled the gptos20b model. That model requires a really unique trick: a chunked multi-layer perceptron.
A chunked MLP, why does it need to be chunked?
Well, in that specific model, the intermediate upper projection layers inflate the dimensions drastically, often 4x or 8x the size of the hidden state.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so if you calculate that massive projection all at once, you spike the VRAM usage and crash the 8 GB card instantly.
Right.
So oLLM chunked the calculation, processing it in smaller vertical slices to flatten the peak memory curve.
It really is an exercise in extreme memory management.
It truly is.
And it's not limited to text models, is it? Because the source material mentions dense multimodal inference, too.
Yes. The Gemma 312B implementation natively handles both text and visual inputs, and the Voxtral Small 24B model handles audio, provided you have the Labrosa library installed for the audio signal processing.
That is super versatile.
It gets better. Beyond multimodality, the auto inference design allows users to dynamically attach LoRa or PFE adapters.
Oh, the fine-tuning adapter.
Right. There's a small fine-tuned add-on that change a model's behavior. The architecture lets you bolt them on without breaking the delicate disk streaming mechanics.
Okay, so let's pause and think about what this all means. We are talking about audio processing, video analysis, 160 gigabyte sparse mixture of experts models.
Yeah.
All running on standard laptop hardware. We know it trades time for memory, but what is the actual catch here? Like, what are the real-world constraints?
The catch is the harsh reality of the performance model.
Let's hear it.
When you are swapping 160 gigabytes of data back and forth from a hard drive, throughput plummets.
Understandably.
For a massive model like Qwen3 Next ADB, you are looking at a generation speed of roughly 1 token every 2 seconds.
1 token every 2 seconds. So you absolutely cannot use this to run a real-time coding assistant or a chatbot.
Oh, it would be a deeply frustrating experience. The system is fundamentally not built for low-latency online serving. Right. It trades wall clock time for access. But, and this is key, it is perfectly designed for offline, throughput-tolerant workloads.
So use cases where you care about the result, but you don't really care if it takes all night to get it.
Exactly. Think about a medical researcher analyzing massive patient histories that span decades.
Okay.
Or a cybersecurity analyst feeding hundreds of pages of threat reports into a model to locate a single behavioral anomaly.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Or an enterprise extracting insights from thousands of historical chat logs in one massive batch process.
In those scenarios, latency doesn't really matter.
Not at all. What matters is that you can run the analysis on your private, secure, local hardware without sending sensitive data to a cloud provider.
Okay, let's step back and look at the whole picture.
No.
We started staring at an impossible 190 gigabyte memory wall.
A very tall wall.
Yeah. And we saw how the industry usually panics and squishes their models down using extreme quantization, like the INT3 compression and SVD compensators in Milo.
Oh, right.
But oLLM refuses to compromise on precision. It keeps the model pristine, choosing instead to stream the weights directly from an SSD to the GPU using that DLPack 0 copy access.
Exactly. It creates transient compute kernels, basically vaporizing the data with zero-size metatensors the absolute second a layer finishes computing.
And by externalizing the key value cache and leveraging the unscaled online softmax math from FlashAttention-2.
Right, avoiding that division bottleneck.
It ensures the context window never overwhelms the system either.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the reason you should care about this incredibly dense architecture is actually quite simple.
It democratizes access to frontier intelligence.
Yes, you do not need $1 million corporate budget to run top-tier, uncompromised models on your own local private data anymore.
You just need a fast, solid-state drive and a little bit of patience.
It really demonstrates that hardware limits are increasingly becoming software problems. That's a great point. The physical capacity of the chips matters less when the mathematical routing becomes the sufficient.
Which leaves us with a provocative final thought for you to ponder. We have spent the last 50 years of computing treating RAM and storage as two completely separate paradigms, right?
Definitely. One is fast and temporary, the other is slow and permanent.
But with solid-state drives getting dramatically faster every single year, and software architectures like oLLM entirely blurring the lines between them to create single continuous memory pools.
It's changing everything.
Are we rapidly approaching a future where the entire concept of GPU memory capacity becomes completely obsolete?